Thank you everyone for joining. Today's chat is called a Fireside Chat on Culture, Collaboration and Kaupapa with Kerry Topp, who's the founder and chief regenerator at the Kerry Topp Collective. We're really excited for this chat just because culture is such an important topic of conversation, and in the games industry, it's not often that you stumble upon people that are so far along in their journey and have such a great amount of stories to tell and to share that can be really valuable to other game studios, individuals, and the studios themselves, and the games that they create. So we're really excited to have Kerry here today to talk to us. This is being recorded, so please, if you can't stick around for the whole chat, we will be posting it on the YouTube channel, the NZGDA YouTube channel. So I'll post a link to that in the chat. Otherwise, the format of this conversation is going to be quite casual, just a fireside chat between Kerry and myself. And then if you have any questions throughout, feel free to ask them in the chat and I can ask them on your behalf. Otherwise, at the end, there will be an opportunity to ask Kerry yourself. So without further ado, I'll like to pass it over to Leanne, who's our Executive Director, to give an opening karakia for the webinar. And then Kerry's going to do something very special and give his own karakia to kick off the fireside chat. So over to you, Leanne. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Kerry, this is a karakia that our community are quite used to me using. It's one of my favorites, I think because of the connection to nature. It's about ceasing the winds, but letting the breeze blow. And I just think there's something lovely about that idea that we're going to stop the busyness of the day and move to like a calmer pace where we're just really here with each other to talk. So, but my Irish accent does get in the way, but I'm sure you can correct me on that later. I do my best. It's about the spirit that you bring to it. Whakatakateo ki te uru, whakatakateo ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā tara tara ki tai, e hi ake ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hohu, ti he Māori ora. Haramai, welcome, Kerry. Carl and I, like lots of people, are on our own personal journeys at different stages, and also those nowadays are professional journeys, because our businesses are people. We bring ourselves and hopefully nowadays our whole selves to work. And so we have followed you in various different ways online and all of the very generous content that you share. So I'm just really excited to just have an opportunity to listen to you. So thank you for the generosity of your time today, because I know you're really in demand. And I don't want to take up any more of it. I'm just here to listen, really. So thank you.
Awesome. Hey, thank you, Carl and Leanne, and kia ora tātou everyone. I'm going to start with a karakia timatanga whilst I recognise the whakataka tahau ki te uru, that talks about the winds and being ready. But I kind of want to talk about what I see in your industry, and I want to base it around Tāne, I guess the god of the forest, but also trees. So just bear with me, and I kind of want to illustrate that I've been on my journey for 4 years, but and it's practice, and I think that's the thing. So karakia timatanga. Paia tūru tapu nui o tāne te waiora, tāne te pukinga, tāne te tukarangi putu ki te whiao, ki te ao marama. Tūtere nana, tūtere maranga, te tuhi rārama. Homi e, hui e, tai ki e. And I love that because what it talks about is pursue the sacred knowledge of Tāne. And Tāne was the god of the forest, but what I love about it is that sense of standing for something that is the life spring. It's about the source and the uplifter of the sky. It's about persistence. It's about illumination. And I see a lot of what we have in Aotearoa, and I feel blessed to be personally I guess it, kind of stumbled on, I guess, and whilst I'd always experienced Te Ao Māori, I didn't know the words and I didn't know what it was. I grew up in Lower Hutt, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But what I experienced when I first went to Gisborne, that was the place where my cultural awakening occurred, was the sense of something different, sense of standing for something that is different. And when I talk about Tāne, God of the forest, and standing, I see this world of Te Ao Māori, and I see the world of Te Ao Pākeha, and I see, or Te Iwi, and I see this world that is something rich and special. And I see it informed and guided by ancient wisdom and knowledge. And I feel that that because I'm a technologist, I've come from technology, I feel this advanced technology can be so much more enriched by this understanding of Te Ao Māori. So that's kind of why I chose that one, and just to riff on it. In terms of ko waia hau, no e rangi o ku tupuna e me te iwi. Ko Strathallan, 1850, te waka, I tipi ake au ki e poneki. Nō reira, ka mihi te maunga Matariki, me te aua kairangi, me te moana raukawa. Ko Topp, me Ren o ku matua tupuna, ko Des, raua ko Gabriel o ku matua, ko Kirsten o tōku hoa rangatira, ko Mohi, ko Rupi, aku tamahine, ko Hohoa, tāku tama. No tamaki makaurau, ki te raro I maungarei, ahau. He tangata tiriti ahau, ko taku mahi ki the Kerry Topp Collective, ko te kai whakahaere awa. Ko Kerry Topp taka ingoa. Look, on what I said there, folks, and look, I'm on my Te Reo journey, and I guess what I want to say is that journey has been 4 years in the making, and I've stumbled and I've made mistakes. And my advice to you is to just keep trying, be curious about the language, because that is the key. What I said there was, and it's one of the key points of Te Ao Māori, is my whakapapa, where I come from. So I come from Irish ancestry. We came over fleeing, I guess, the famine on the Strathallan in 1850, like many of us. Doesn't matter whether you came by waka or whether you came by tall ship or silver bird, we've all arrived here. And I grew up in Wellington, and my mum and dad, so my father was a man of, I guess, social impact. He was a collaborator, and my mum was the entrepreneur. She was the one that built a business, a highly successful business that got ultimately sold to a foreign company and closed down. So I'm driven by this desire to serve and this desire to create value and high value jobs. And if I look at the gaming industry, you guys create high value jobs, and I want to see more and diversity within it, because I think there's magic in it. And so that's kind of what brings me here today. So look, that's a little bit about me and a little bit of the karakia. So hopefully that's some context. Carl, in your hands.
I love it. I love it, Kerry. And even though that may have felt long, I think it speaks perfectly on one of the pillars of Te Ao Māori, and that's how important your heritage is and your background. And it's important that we spend time talking about it, so that we can move forward with the weight of our ancestors. And you inspire me, I think, with every piece of content that you put out, and every time I hear you talk, it's really empowering and motivating for me on my journey. And I have a bunch of questions that kind of cover personal journeys, the journeys that businesses can take and game studios can take, and then some questions about just games themselves and how we can incorporate more culture and diversity and Te Ao Māori in the games themselves in an appropriate way that is respectful. So just starting, I guess, on our personal journeys, I love that you mentioned that you started your journey in Gisborne, and I'd love just to quickly just kind of touch on that, and I'd love to know if there was like an inciting incident that started the journey, that made you kind of look inward into Te Ao Māori and kind of take it seriously to actually get like on this journey. Was it something that you tried and failed and then tried again, or was it something, a moment that you remember that really made that shift?
There's a moment, yeah, and people often comment about this pikatia behind me is kind of, where is it? It's on Wainui Beach, and in Tairāwhiti in Gisborne. Waikanae Beach, not Wainui, sorry. And so we'd gone down there as part of NZTE, New Zealand Trade and Enterprise. I was working at Datacom at the time, and we're seeking to help Māori businesses scale from anywhere. And the place that we chose to stand, Tūranga Waiwai, was Tairāwhiti, which has 50 odd plus percent Māori. And there was many games, tech entrepreneurs that sort of homed from there, but had gone away. So Steve Saunders, Grant Straker, so lots of people who had been successful, and we were seeking to help them scale. What we found is when we engaged the community, we engaged many people from around the country who parachuted in and helped accelerate those businesses. But it was actually that moment. That moment meant I combined technology with the sense of taio. So we'd taken some time out and we'd connected, and we had karakia out there, and we were facing the out towards the peninsula, and the waves were rolling in. It was cold, and we just had this moment where we felt all connected to each other on our kaupapa. We knew who we were, we knew what we were seeking to achieve, and we felt connected to the taio. And I didn't know it at the time, but that was my moment of charting my course from Datacom at the time out to charting my own waka and finding others that wanted to do the same. That piece was really successful in that we found that we actually found that 20 odd people moved from Auckland to go down to Gisborne. So there was an economic impact. But we actually identified net new talent that was hidden from us previously. We inspired one young lady who was sixth form at school to go in and build her own tech business. And I wanted to do more of that. I wanted to see more Māori and Pacifica and women and underrepresented communities in technology. That was the moment.
Mm-hmm. I love it. No, that's awesome. And I think storytelling is a really powerful just part of human nature, and it's important to have that moment that you can look back on that helps fuel the kind of continuation of that journey. So that's really powerful. Because I know how vulnerable you love being, and how much you love to teach the lessons that you've learned. I'd love to know if there's one failure that you've made in the last 4 years that is an interesting story that you think can help those that might be afraid of going on this journey at the risk of failing, and I think that is part of the process. And I'd love to know if there's anything in particular that you can share that might help people on their journey.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think over that 4-year period, one of the biggest things that, because I was immersing myself in so much in Te Ao Māori, I was reading a lot. I was trying to, so I started Te Reo courses, and I guess it's hard to work out what role you can play, and where you play and what space is the right space, but particularly as I'm going to call it, right? I'm a white middle-aged pākeha male that represents, I guess, a lot of what we're moving away from, embracing other parts, right? More of the diversity. And I guess I struggled with what role do I play? And I made some mistakes. So some of those mistakes are, trying to speak on behalf of Māori. That's not my place. And I learned that through mistakes. And equally, I'd say that trying to speak for women, and trying to speak for Pacifica. It's not my place. My place is to find those people that have a voice and amplify them. And that's the insight that I've found. And my widow and challenge to any leader is to not be the champion. It's actually to tautoko and support and find the people that are making the difference and get in behind them. That's simply the biggest thing. So the metaphor I use is, because of the way I look and where I've been educated and stuff like that, the tributaries and the rivers that I run, I have access to other tributaries that others don't have access to. And honestly, I don't know why that is, but it's just the way. If I can open up a tributary of opportunity and network and create network opportunities for Māori, Pacifica women who I believe and see are making a difference, it's the biggest thing I can do as a leader. So hopefully that's been helpful, Carl.
Yeah, no, that's amazing, and that is a great leadership quality. That, you know, okay. Here's an interesting question. How has your ego played a part in your journey? Because the way you're speaking, I feel there's a lot of heart and care, and I wonder if your ego has been a part of your transformation at all in the last few years, and what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah. Yeah, we're reflecting on that. I think as you get older, and like I'll declare I'm also over 50, right? So the road ahead is shorter than the one behind. And for me, if I look at that, you know, you sit there and go, well, what am I on this earth for? And you know, we've got our kids marching in the streets. We've got employees feeling that they are cogs in machines, and so I think the time of ego and boxing people and things is over. I think that the understanding that we all have a place to play based on our pōnamu, what makes us special. So putting a backseat to ego has been absolutely part of it. I think as I was younger, in my 30s and 40s, I was driven by what it is I was building in terms of size, scale, and stuff like that. As I've gotten, I guess, slower, maybe, wiser, possibly. I think I've actually realized that, you know, the role that I play is in helping and facilitating tautoko, supporting others be successful. And I can only do that once for myself, but I could do it multiple times for others. And if I can see them achieve and, you know, that they're succeeding. So yes, in short, I think taking a back seat around ego, and I think having kids, in all honesty, really does help with that. You realize actually there's nothing like, you know, seeing your kids be happy and succeed, and seeing people succeed. Yeah.
Yeah, no, great answer. Thank you. I kind of want to move. So you've sent through a ton of resources, and part of me wanted to kind of touch on all these resources as we went. But honestly, I think if we just spoke on all the content and resources that you've created and that you can point people towards, that is enough for a workshop, half-day workshop, because it's honestly incredible just the amount of information that you provide. So what I'm going to do is in the description of the video that we post on YouTube, I'll add all the resources that you've provided, but I also encourage people to go to your LinkedIn and follow your pages, because you're constantly adding new perspectives to common, just educating people as you're learning on your journey. So that's just this one thing I wanted to touch on to kind of move forward to the next topic is, as businesses, and I'm not a studio owner myself, but just from just being familiar with people in business, it's important to be focused on profit and the growth of a business, and a lot of companies have culture as one of their pillars of their business, but a lot of the time the kind of actions to enforce culture get put behind the back burner of making money for the company. And I guess I'd love your perspective on that, on what advice you have for people that are trying to build a business and trying to make sure that food gets put on the table, compared with balancing having a healthy work culture that they're enacting in their business. I'm sure this is a very big kind of topic, but I'd love to know what kind of pieces have come to your mind just by me explaining that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're fundamentally in a shift, and if I look at projections in New Zealand particularly, I think we're moving from I talked about the box, right? And someone famous, Steve Sammartino, talked about it in somewhat in a challenging way, and it doesn't sound too positive, but it is. It's kind of, we live in a box at home. We drive to box in a box to work. We go and work in a box, and we work in a cubicle that's a box, and ultimately we end up in a box. I think that well, Steve would also say that that's a bit of a negative connotation. I think what we're doing is we're moving to this world of understanding that we're all part of a system, and that we're all flowing. And I think businesses are the same. I think if a business thinks that its sole focus is profit, I think, yes, that's one of those things. That's an outcome. It's an outcome of working with people. So your people, your customers. So who are you uplifting? So that's one of the questions I would ask as a leader. Who are you uplifting? Is it your colleagues? Is it your customers? Is it communities? Is it your stakeholders or your shareholders? And you will arrive at, it's probably all of those, but there's a priority, right? And I think that priority is shifting. Yes, it's been about shareholders, but actually the role you play in place. So who are you uplifting in your community and your spaces and the areas in which you operate? What are you doing around your planetary boundaries? What are you doing to ensure that the planet has the life force? What are you doing to ensure that your people have the life force? And then the other side of it is, as an organization, what are you doing to uplift your people, your internal teams, your future workforce, your colleagues? So it's quite complex, right? But I think if you can focus on two things, and I'll draw on Te Ao Māori, if you can focus on uplifting the mana and enhancing the mana or prestige of the people that you work for or work with you, or you work as a supplier, or you look to lift as customers, and you do the right things in place, and you focus on rituals that uplift your team, but also create Maori life force of them, then I think this formula is quite simple. So to me, I feel that the opportunity for business is to take a more holistic approach versus a boxed approach, and to focus on intergenerational outcomes or longer term outcomes. Businesses are actually failing at greater rates, 18 years down from 60 in 1950 something or other. Why is that? I think that we've lost sight of being intergenerational businesses. And who thinks intergenerationally? Who creates 150, 200-year plans? Māori businesses, and they're thinking about not just what's in front of them, but who are they honoring in the past? And they're bringing their story into it. So, as you're building your businesses, who are you honoring? What are the stories you're honoring? So, yeah, look, I think that we are seeing, as population changes, a change from this colonial thinking to more of a community, communal orientated thing. And just by the way, stats are showing that by 2030, 30% Māori and Pacifica, 2040, 40% Māori and Pacifica, 2050, 50% Māori and Pacifica. What we look like now is not going to represent what we will look like. And so communal thinking and communal outcomes, I'd start shifting my business there as quickly as I could.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Going a bit more granular, you mentioned rituals before in businesses. Could you talk talk on a few rituals that you think do, you know, build that mana within organizations, yeah, just a few little things similar, like a karakia, just other things like that businesses can adopt in order to you know, show that they do want to lift their mana.
Yeah, yeah. Look, I think it's important that in the journey that you know, because you are embracing, whether you do it as you know, kind of in Te Ao pākeha or Te Ao Māori, I think just working on the basis of you know, talking about who you are, right? So ko waia hau in Māori is very powerful. I think a lot of people talk about, you know, why we exist. But I actually think the uniqueness of New Zealand and Te Ao Māori is that they're asking, you know, who are you? Who are you? You know, so they're wanting to understand where you've come from, your whakapapa, right? So the understanding of pepeha and how to say where you come from, either in your own language or Māori, is very, very strong. Creating opportunities for people to share that. And I'll talk about some outcomes that I've seen in terms of taking a process. So what we used to do at Datacom is we just used to welcome people in, right? And after I experienced this image here, I felt rituals. I felt the karakia. I felt pepeha. I felt mihi. And so there was a bit of the stuff that we did right up front. And it's really powerful. You know, we did karakia over kai, over food, and then we closed out. Now, those rituals of understanding can be illustrated by when we used to welcome people in, they just come into reception, and then we'd take them to a room, right? So the difference is that as soon as we experienced this, we went, actually, no, we'll go and meet them at the front door. We'll invite them in. We'll bring them through. And we'll talk about the origin story of our place, referring to the rooms that we have and why we named those rooms, and the origin story of Datacom. Before we got into the room, we took them into a room, funnily enough, which was called Piatatahi, which was my favorite room because it actually meant shining together. So then we said, well, actually, welcome to Piatatahi. And our hope for this is that we shine together. And then we were able to, before we started anything, we did whakawhanaunetanga. I never knew what that meant, but I now know it's about deep understanding of who people are. And before you get into any mahi, in fact, you go through that and they talk about where they come from. You create connection. Now that has categorically improved my relationships, my trust, my understanding of people, and it has opened up a world and opportunity that I've never known before. And in our time at Datacom, it actually shaped up how we engage with our customers in completely different ways. And so then we break bread together, and then we get into our mahi. Right, so those types of rituals really get down to ko waia hau, who you are, ko wai mato, who we are together, and then you define your heaha tō kaupapa, you know, what is our kaupapa together? And then you get in and define your mahi. And then ultimately you have those heaha tō tikanga, what are the values, the principles in which we operate. Yeah, so look, there's a whole lot of there, but the benefits were that as we went through that at Datacom, and for me, it's more the closer connection that I have with people and the trust and that they can call on me and I can call on them. But it's led to additional work. You know, we picked up net new work. We were the fastest growing part of our business. And I put it fundamentally down to the fact that we were operating and working differently.
Love that, and I have to touch on this just because ever since COVID has struck, we've been living in a remote world, and a lot of companies haven't gone back to normal and don't look like they are going to go back to being in office spaces and things like that. So I'd love to just ask your thoughts on how to adopt similar, I guess, rituals in an asynchronous world or in a Zoom call world. Like, for example, before this call started, you noticed it was quite silent, whereas when it was just you, Leanne, and myself, and you took the initiative to put some lovely calming music on in the background, and that just helped kind of set the mood. And also, I observed how you welcomed everyone as soon as we brought them into the chat. And just on that thread, is there anything else that you kind of adopt as you navigate these kind of virtual remote scenarios that you think are worth mentioning?
Kia ora, man. Yeah, look, I think it's hard in a virtual world, right? And I think the more that you can do in trial and error, to me, the thing that makes New Zealand, I think, both unique and have huge potential is this opportunity to build through whakawhanaungatanga whanaunga, but also manaki and care. So putting on music is something that I've found has been soothing, and having a vibe as people come in and welcoming them warmly. You know, that's all stuff that builds, which shows manaki, right? Manaki was care and hospitality and stuff like that. Whilst there's no kai, you can still do stuff that does that. In light of that, though, I have run hackathons where we've sought to create that sense, and we've sent out packs to our whānau that have been participating. And we have had sort of snacks, and we shared kai together. We were able to have karakia and over the kai, and so those rituals are still possible in a virtual environment. My advice would be to test and try and learn. And the other side of it is there's tikanga experts that are out there. And Māori culture is struggling with this as much as we are, right? How do you do wānanga, full day wānanga or 2-day wānanga? So look at those examples, seek to draw on those folks. And so folks that I draw on, just to give some names, from not from the gaming sector, but there are some folks, Atawhai Tibble, who talks about data sovereignty, application of Te Ao Māori and tikanga to data, is an awesome person. Sarah Cole Stratton talks about AI. She's internationally recognised, but locally not that well recognised. And why is that? But she's someone to watch. Precious Clark, Katarina Davis, they're folks from Te Kā. These are all practitioners that I would recommend. And just see what they're doing and how they're doing it. Be a part of some of their work and see what happens.
Love that.
Sorry, mate, I paused at the wrong time just as you were having a drink.
No, lovely.
Yeah.
Perfect. And that's what I love is you're not coming to this conversation with all the answers, and it's like you're figuring it out for yourself as you kind of navigate these changes. And I think that's such a great mindset to adopt, because no matter what environment you get put in, you're going to find a way to make it work for you, to make it special, to make it feel valuable and important and special. And that's why I love your attitude, because it's such a positive way of viewing just the world. Is at your core, you care deeply about the benefits that incorporating Te Ao Māori into your day-to-day brings, and that just means everywhere you go, you'll bring that with you, and that's really special. I'd love to move on to Regenerate Matariki and talk a bit about that and what the mission is behind that, if you wouldn't mind. For anyone listening that isn't familiar, just give like an overview of what it is.
Yeah, sure. So Regenerate Game Jam started out, well, Matariki, which is happening on the 17th, 19th of June. So Matariki is, I guess, the time in which star cluster becomes visible, and that signals, I guess, the time of the Māori New Year. And it's a significant day because because we're also moving towards a public holiday for it in New Zealand, and I'd say about time. It's uniquely us, and so I celebrate that. I think Regenerate Matariki came out of Regenerate Game Jam in February, which was focused on, we see a lot of farm games that talk about mass production, and mass production is just not the future. Regenerative permaculture and other indigenous ways of farming are, I think, the future. They're moving from square or production to circular. And so Regenerate Game Jam looks to riff off that. We had over 100 people. We had 17% Māori, 17% woman as part of that. And so Neva Kay, who's an amazing wahine toa, who Carl's previously interviewed, and Leanne, and she runs an organisation called Pākeha Permaculture. They run a small permaculture farm that produces over 100,000 dollars of produce per annum in Coromandel. So she has this background around organic and regenerative farming. But with Matariki, we said, well, actually, if we're moving to this other place, how do we showcase that indigenous wisdom and intelligence that's out there around Marakai, Maramataka, Aka Tu Whenua, which is Māori permaculture, and Pātaka Kai is preservation. And how might we combine that with games? Because there's something when you look at what we could stand for in New Zealand, it's actually something that is rich and good and standing for good in the world. Well, popular culture is a way of showing different practices and different ways of thinking. So we're combining, I guess, permaculture, Marakai, Maramataka. We've got 7 awesome mentors that are coming together with about 20 odd industry experts from games. We're looking to bring them together to create games that are good for people, place, and planet. We're wanting to showcase ultimately a vision that sees Aotearoa as a beacon globally for games that are good for people, place, and planet, and that we're showcasing modern technology with indigenous and ancient intelligence. Our goal is to double the Māori and Pacifica participation rate to 36%. It's not quite double, but it'll do. Double participation rate of women and gender diverse folks to 36% as well. We're going into schools. We've got support from MOE. We've got support from Sam Ramlu, amazing wahine toa doing awesome stuff. We've got all the Sams have come on, Sam Witters as well from Toro Studios and Nikora Narupo as well. And so look, we feel very blessed. On the 17th and 19th of June, we're hoping to create another 21 games that focus on gaming that is good for people, place, and planet, and showcasing Te Ao Māori indigenous wisdom and intelligence.
And it's free to enter, right? It's
free. Yeah.
Free to enter. It's
online.
It's online, so you can take part anywhere. So if you're listening to this, then definitely we'll post the link in the chat and the description of the YouTube video as well for those interested in taking part. Definitely reach out. It's a great cause and some great people attached to it. That aside from the amount of value that you'd get from working on a project like this, there's a great network of people to connect with as well that are also passionate about the space.
And if we're wanting to find amazing talent, so we've got HTK that are running a wānanga out of Christchurch at Ara Institute, and they're bringing 20 rangatahi, and they're going to wānanga over the course of the weekend. And our goal is to find, and uncover those gems that are out there, because they're there. and just finding the opportunity to showcase them. And we're amazed just at the talent that came out and was on show, young up and coming talent. So, and we also want to showcase our businesses and our thinking to the world. So it's a global event. It's run on a global platform, and there will be additional folks from overseas. We had people join from the Yukon of all places in the last one, and hopefully we'll see them back.
Wow, amazing. Great, yeah. So that sounds really exciting. I wish the best for the event, and I might even see if there's any way I can participate or find a team to put together to help get involved. So another thread that I think would be really valuable to get your perspective on is, there's a bunch of opportunities in the New Zealand game scene right now with studios emerging in different regions, and culture being, or not culture, but just Te Ao Māori being an area that people want to explore more. And in some cases, there might not be like a dedicated Māori in the team, or there might be, but even they don't feel confident enough kind of talking about their heritage in the form of a game. And I'd love to know what your thoughts are for those teams out there that want to incorporate their culture or their ancestry into their games, or it could just be about Aotearoa in general, about it could be the native bush, or the the Kiwi, or whatever it is that inspires them to want to make art out of. What your advice is to just navigate those discussions in a respectful way. I'd love to know, what your thoughts are and what advice or even resources you recommend to those people.
Yeah, well, the first one is, as a leader in the organisation, I'd be seeking to form a partnership of some sort. And I guess the way that I'm thinking about it is, and advising folks is, you see, I hope I'm not declaring it or over declaring here, but I'm a craft beer aficionado. I love craft beer, but what I love about it is the artisan element of it, and I love the collaborations that you see between Garage Project and Behemoth, or whatever it is, right? What I'd be seeking to do is seeking to partner and tautoko and support those that are out there. So Maru, right, Niho, in terms of the work that she's doing at Metia, Dr. Phyllis Callahan out of Tairāwhiti, amazing stuff with Katuku Island and solving literacy challenges. How might you create relationships with them at an executive level, at a partnership level? So that would be the first one. The second thing would be, kind of seeking out those folks within, maybe in the academic institutions that are young, up and coming, or even experienced, right? And partnering with them and bringing those folks in. There is huge opportunity, but I think to do it respectfully, you need to focus on how do we partner, how do we create the elements of te tiriti for those people that you're doing. How do you uplift their mana first before seeking your own? Is something that I would be seeking to think about. And I know the business side of you goes, well, what's in it for me, right? And I get that. I think the thing in the Māori world is it's this reciprocity comes through showing that you have people's interest and heart. That's how you build trust. And so creating, relationships with Nikora, Naropo and Toro Studios could be another one. But they also have an academy of young gamers that they're seeking to build through. So how do you to tap into that? So my advice would be, I think I'd be operating at multiple levels. I think I'd be operating at partnership level, at an executive level. We'll be looking to create a collaboration partnership. And then I'd be seeking to work partnership relationships around those providers like the academies that create pathways for those young rangatahi you know, you could do that as part of a collaborative, or you could go, that pathway becomes me building the capability, but you need a senior person in there. So whatever you do, my advice would be do it deliberately and don't try and do it half-assed. Because the tax that you create on quite honestly incredible people is that you ask them, by doing it over and above their day job, you create a tax inadvertently. I know you're thinking that you're doing the right thing, but that tax comes in them being stretched multiple ways and probably not recompensed for it. So my advice would be, if you are serious about this, then get serious about how you resource it, and find a person, the one person, whether that's external, internal, or otherwise, and get them in and build around them. Does that help, Carl?
Absolutely. I think having, you know, getting the trust of an expert in the space would, you know, be the most, because like you said, it's showing that reciprocity, and having them build that trust without you expecting anything in return. Once you kind of build that trust, I'm sure that's the most powerful and empowering feeling, just having that partnership, you know, that you've earned, which makes it all the more like powerful, and the kind of opportunities that could create as well. One question I just wanted to ask is are you open, or in the, like, do you want, would you be interested in people reaching out to you that do want to start having these conversations, and maybe you can point them towards people that you think would be best fit? I just want to kind of make that clear, just in case people do want to reach out and start a conversation.
Yeah. Look, I mean, my world is, you know, I don't whakapapa Māori, right? I'm pākeha that's been on a 4-year journey of discovery, and yeah, I've gone hard out at it because I love it and I want to do more of it. So, you know, I guess what I can offer is a pākeha view of how you might go and implement that. I mean, you know, I've worked at Datacom, where I ran 4 businesses, had 120 people within that, and you know, it was a sizable business. I was able to make decisions about how I hired, where I hired, and what I did. I've got all those learnings. What I can't offer is the Māori side, right? But what I can offer is, because of the work that I've done, is partnerships and relationships that I can open up to you. You know, we've talked about some of the names of the folks. The other thing that I'd say is, you know, reaching out to Lee Temu at the Māori Tech Association, you know, kind of getting involved there and seeing who else is out there in the Māori ecosystem. I'd strongly encourage, particularly as Pākeha leaders, what we can do to assist in tautoko and help that sector grow. So he would be another person that potentially has got lots of contacts. So yes, short answer is happy to talk to anyone. Whether I can help will depend on, I guess, the he pātai, the question, but I'm always happy to point people at the direction.
Kia ora, Kerry. Thank you. I think that kind of wraps up the fireside chat, and if you'd like to lead into a closing karakia, and feel free to elaborate exactly on you know what that karakia means as well, like you did with the opening, that would be appreciated. And also, if anyone has any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat, and we can address them before we close out the webinar. So over to you, Kerry, to close out the fireside chat.
If it's okay, I just might go to Ngā Pātai and before we close with karakia. I do notice Amber in there. Amber, kia ora, lovely to see your name and your face, and also recognise someone that I used to play cricket with many moons ago in Aloha, Justin Herbert. So Herbie, kia ora, nice to see you, man. We live in a small world. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Any pātai?
I think you've done an amazing job at covering areas that, you know, people may have been curious about. But yeah, I appreciate everyone tuning in and staying through the chat. Amber, awesome. Do you have a question? You raised your hand.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora. Oh, I can't start my video, but kia ora, Kerry. Really appreciate that. Everything you're talking about is the stuff that I'm journeying on at the moment in the building of my company. And a question I have, Patai, is I have somewhat successfully or unsuccessfully tried to take some big established companies through some changes in this space about bringing in Te Ao Māori, but also about looking at culture. And as I'm journeying and starting now, how do I bring on individuals who may not have thought about this, thought about our culture, thought about maybe the overseas, you know, things like that. Like, how is the best, I can start my video. Kia ora. What is the best kind of, kia ora, way for me to bring people along with me in this journey?
Great question. Great, Patai. Look, any change, people have to be ready, right? And I think what you're seeking to find, Amber, is those people where they're on their journey and you can see their wakas kind of similar spaces or places to yours. Using a metaphor, I'd be seeking those people and trying to join through kaupapa, you know, the bit in the middle between the two waka is kaupapa, right? I didn't understand that until someone told me. But I'd be seeking to find as many of those folks and sort of create a cluster of folks. I feel that if you invest time in trying to convince people who aren't ready, that you will invest a lot of time, particularly for a fledgling business. So my advice, my key advice would be, and I'm happy to help in any way I can to open some doors, you know, is find those folks that at least are curious. I think that's the key thing, because if you don't have curiosity as a leader, then, you know, you can be there and knock on their door, but good luck. So my advice would be focus on those people that you think are curious, and in one or two meetings you will determine whether their actions speak louder than their words, and then move on. And find others around you, kia ora, who want to do the same thing.
Kia ora.
Yeah. Does that help, Amber?
Yeah. Yes, just trying to get people on the waka with me, but you're right, I cannot force, and it's
you
just
can
about
encourage.
bringing, encourage.
You encourage, right? But if they're not ready, they're not ready. So move on and find those people that are, and keep pushing out there, keep testing, keep floating things out that find those people that come to you. You know, you can put signals out socially and sort of see, and you'll see who resonates, and then bring those close, determine whether you're wasting time or not. Because life's short. You want to move with people that want to make impact, right?
Yeah. Kia ora. Thank you.
Yeah.
Kia ora, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great.
Good. We should close out, eh?
Yeah, perfect.
Cool. Okay. Mō toko he, which means apologies in advance. It doesn't mean advance, but so still on my Reo journey, and so I'm going to close out with one that I honestly struggle with, to be fair, but karakia timatanga. Kia tau te rangamari e. O te rangi e tū ihu ne, o papatuanuku e tokoto ne, o te taiao e awhi ne, ke runga ia tātou, tihe mauri ora. And what that means is, let the peace settle amongst us all, from the sky father to the earth mother below, the energy of the two working together to create life. And the environment that looks after us, let there be life. Kia ora everyone, ke runga no atu, which means onwards and upwards. Thank you so much for your time and your presence today. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Kerry. The pleasure is ours. For anyone listening, feel free to connect with Kerry. I personally find his LinkedIn is where I get the most value from. And there'll be more links in the description to other pages and resources that Kerry has provided in the past. And with that, I'd like to pass it over to Leanne to close out the webinar with the NZGDA today.
Kia ora. Thank you, Carl. Thank you, Kerry. Yeah, this journey is really important to me as a leader. and what I love about it personally is the fact that we're quite a ritualistic culture in Ireland as well. And you lose all of that when you leave. And so people will often say that the Irish connect quite easily to Te Ao Maori and the spirit behind it. So what I like about this closing karakia is that it talks about freeing the heart and the spirit, and then reaffirming and moving forward. And so just being a little bit more free to like find the connections that connect with your heart and soul, and go with those and be vulnerable and be open. So I think you've really left us with that message today. Unahia ki te uru tapanui, kia wātia, kia mama, te nākau, te tinana, te wairua i te ara takata, koira i rongo, whakairea aki ki runga, kia tina, huie tākie.
Yeah, kia ora.
Thank you, Kerry.
Awesome. Yeah.
Kia ora. Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone, and have a lovely rest of your day.
Yeah, kia pai tora. Yeah.
Yeah, ka kite everyone.
Ka
Have a
kite.
good day.